I posted on my Instagram. You can follow me at AlexBNB. Follow me right there. And I posted a poll saying, what is the greatest team of all time? But before we get into that right now, make sure to like and subscribe to the video if you enjoy it. And let's get it on right now. First up, Pasto Chris says any year of the three-peat Lakers. So yes, the Shaq and Kobe dynasty, 4 NBA Finals appearances, a three-peat, the best season. I have to go with the 2000-2001 Los Angeles Lakers team, and here's why. Yes, the 99-2000 season, they won 67 regular season games. But the X factor has to be Kobe Bean Bryant. Going from 22.5 points per game to now averaging 28.5 points per game. Yes, Shaq is still averaging 30 and 15 in the playoffs. Kobe Bryant goes from star to franchise superstar. So they go 15-1 the postseason, tying the greatest record in postseason history. They sweep Sacramento. They sweep the top-seeded Spurs. And the greatest test of all is Sacramento. You have 2 top 4 scorers in the postseason in Shaq and Kobe. They are both top 4 in PER in the postseason. Shaq averages 30.4 points per game. Kobe's 29.4 points per game in the postseason is unmatched for anybody offensively. And yes, Shaq is not remembered as the greatest defensive big man, but in the early 2000s, Phil inspired him to really go after it on the defensive end. This is the NBA all-defensive team Shaq that you see in the highlights. This Lakers team was 3rd in opponents' points per game in the postseason, 2nd in opponents' field goal percentage. This is Kobe, not at his highest, but Kobe elevating his game. Shaq still dominant and still mostly healthy throughout the regular season and postseason. Combined with the postseason record that they had and the dominance that they had in the postseason, this is the greatest Shaq and Kobe team out of any of the 3 championship seasons. But greatest team of all time, I don't even think I can say this is the greatest Lakers team as much as I want to, because the 86-87 team you do not want no smoke with. But greatest team of all time, stay tuned because we're gonna decide that. Alright, next up, Jaquan Johnson says the 05-06 Miami Heat team because that's when he became a basketball fan. Now, the 05-06 Miami Heat team is definitely one of the most underappreciated championship teams of recent memory. You know, you have former franchise players with Gary Payton, you have Alonzo Mourning as a role player now, you have former All-Star Antoine Walker now coming from the Celtics. This team definitely had playoff and veteran experience. You have Shaq, you know, I'd say this is the last in the tank that we got from Diesel. I know he had 2 more All-Star appearances after this, one with Miami, another with Phoenix, but this was when Shaq was on the decline but could still drop 30 on somebody. Then you also have Dwayne Wade, who becomes Flash. He wins that NBA Finals MVP. He becomes a bona fide superstar. But this team did not have it easy. This team squared off with a 65-win Detroit Pistons team, arguably one of the greatest defensive teams of NBA history. They were strictly defense. That's how they got their ring. That's how they made it to consecutive Eastern Conference Finals. Their leading scorer that year only scored 20 points per game, Richard Hamilton. And for Miami to pass them and go to the NBA Finals against a loaded Mavericks team when Dirk is in his prime and come back from a 2-0 deficit, it does speak volumes. But to say this is the best NBA team of all time, to be fair, I don't think I could put this as the best Miami Heat team. Alright, next we have Matos Derek, and he says the 2011-2012 Charlotte Bobcats.
What?
This might be arguably the worst team to ever set foot in. A shortened NBA lock-in season saved them from probably being easily the worst. Poor Kemba Walker. Alright, more Bobcats talk. BeatSims _ says the 11-12 Bobcats.
Stop it. Get some help.
Yes, thank you. Finally a goated team. Alright, so Alec Lakota says the 2012-2013 Miami Heat team with Braun, Wade, and Bosh equals the dynamic trio. This team was probably the greatest Miami team that they really had in that 4-year span. You have the addition of Ray Allen, you have Shane Battier, you have Rashard Lewis, Mike Miller, you have shooting for days. You have LeBron really tapped into his prime. Dwayne Wade and Bosh. You have Haslam, you have shot blocking with Birdman. This is a crazy good team. 27-game win streak. I feel like people tend to forget about that crazy run that they had. But let us not forget, aside the 66 regular season wins, this team had their moments. People tend to forget about that Game 3 NBA Finals where it's the third worst loss in NBA Finals history, where they only put up 77 points. Now, those 113 points that the Spurs shot, I know that Danny Green probably won't score 27 points again in the NBA Finals, you know, knock on wood, hope he does. 77 points, you know, holding the King under 20 points. This is, I can't, and to determine off one game is not fair. This is definitely one of the greatest teams in my top 10, but to say greatest of all time, I just can't see it. I feel that this Miami Heat trio, as great as they were, they didn't accomplish, I feel, as much as they could have. The Mavericks was a winnable series. The last series that they had against the Spurs, they just got outplayed. That's plain and simple. But aside that, this season, the 2012-2013 season, LeBron was definitely in his bag. He won the MVP that season. So to say they're the greatest of all time, I could definitely respect that. Definitely not my choice or what is the greatest team of all time, in my opinion. I feel so bad doing this right now because I like this dude. Me and him have like the same music taste. He puts me onto a lot of good stuff musically. But I'm gonna slaughter your name and I'm sorry. So Cairo Zam says the 2015 Hawks. Now listen, this team had 4 NBA All-Stars. You have Jeff Teague, you have Kyle Korver, Paul Millsap, Al Horford. Coach Budenholzer at the helm. A 60-win season. They were at the top of the world, the #1 seed in the East that year. But greatest of all time, maybe for ATL. I mean, sure, why not? But hell no, what the hell? Also, no ring, no discussion. I am not hearing it. Listen, as we go deeper into this, there's a couple people that said, yes, this team, if they did this. No hypotheticals. What's the greatest team of all time? And of course, as soon as I do mention that, the co-host of Beats in Basketball Radio, Leroy at Lee.5_ says the 15-16 Warriors. They were something special, but arrogance kind of ruined it for them. I wouldn't call it arrogance. I just call it greatness of LeBron James. And I'm not saying that as a fan. It's literally the greatest comeback story to be written in sports history. This team was special. You know, we had the first unanimous MVP of all time in Stephen Curry, averaging 30 plus per game. You have Klay Thompson averaging 22 points per game. Draymond Green averaging 14.5 points per game, which is a lot looking back now to seeing what he's producing now. You have 3 All-Stars in the trio of them. You have Barbosa off the bench, Livingston off the bench, Spades off the bench. You have the supporting cast of Bogut and Barnes. This team on paper isn't as star-studded as future Warrior teams, but they still curated a way to win 73 games. But no rings, you can't be the greatest without a ring. They are the greatest team to not have a ring. That's probably the best way you could put it in terms. Alright, so Matt Bisco says the 17-18 Warriors team, and it's not even that close. Okay, first thing, this Warriors team went 58-24 without Steph Curry playing for 6 weeks. He only played 51 regular season games. You still have Kevin Durant, you have Klay, you have Draymond, and then you have Curry in the playoffs. Here's where things get a little tricky. Their foe in the NBA Finals, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the 3rd straight NBA Finals, they're going against each other. The only NBA teams to really ever accomplish this in NBA history. People tend to forget that LeBron didn't have Kyrie this year. LeBron didn't have Kyrie this year as he departs to Boston, and he doesn't play in the postseason due to injury. LeBron goes 7 games in Indiana, sweeps Toronto, goes 7 games with a Kyrie-less Boston Celtics team, and they go 7 games. So the Cleveland Cavaliers aren't as good as they were the year before. And also the Warriors aren't as, I wouldn't say not as good, but the Western Conference competition rose. The Houston Rockets had a chance to really capitalize on the Golden State Warriors. But Chris Paul, of course, as we know, had the infamous hamstring injury. They couldn't buy a basket in multiple games in the series. So to say the greatest team of all time, I can't agree with that. And even saying the statement that they were the greatest team when it comes to the Golden State super team with Kevin Durant and Curry and Klay. Alright, Laurentina says the 16-17 Warriors team, but before that, not even close. And that's the best way to say it in my opinion. This 16-17 team goes 67-15. Kevin Durant missed 20 basketball games in the regular season. Yes, I know in those 20 games they had a winning record, but if you apply Kevin Durant, this generation's best scorer, in my opinion the greatest scorer of all time, he's going to bolster that regular season record up to the 73-9 team, up to the 72-10 Bulls team. But here's why they are the 2nd greatest NBA basketball team of all time. Yes, we talk about dominance, We talk about how LeBron James had the greatest NBA Finals he's ever played in, yet was only able to get one game out the Golden State Warriors. I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that they go 15-1 the postseason, tying the greatest postseason record in NBA history. But here's the shortcomings. The Kawhi Leonard effect. We know that at halftime in the Western Conference Finals, up 25 is the San Antonio Spurs at halftime. Kawhi Leonard goes down to a dirty play by Zaza Pachulia, and the Warriors sweep the San Antonio Spurs. Now, to really define that, preventing them from being the second best team in NBA history rather than the first sounds silly, but it's only one mark to really pull them back from being the greatest. If you look at the competition in this scenario compared to the next team, you'll understand where I'm coming from. Playing a Portland team with Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum is a solid team. Playing the Utah Jazz, a solid team with Gordon Hayward and company. Playing the San Antonio Spurs without Kawhi Leonard and Tim Duncan's out the picture now that he's retired. So really you're playing against an aged Manu Ginobili, a Tony Parker, and LaMarcus Aldridge not in his prime. That's the Western Conference look for the Golden State Warriors this season. It's not their fault because I'm acknowledging their dominance against the Cleveland Cavaliers who had everyone healthy. Kevin Love was healthy. Kyrie Irving was healthy. They had a supporting cast. Did they show up? You can decide for yourself on that. But the reasoning why I'm not placing them as the greatest team of all time is because the 95-96 Chicago Bulls team displayed dominance against sheer competition. Yes, 72-10, the greatest offense in the league that year, an offensive rating and points per game. But this may be the greatest two-way team to ever play. They were third in opposing points per game, first in defensive efficiency. This team had bench depth, something that the Warriors team, 16-17 team, didn't have in comparison to previous years. You know, you have Kerr, you have Harper, you have Kukoc, you have MVP Jordan in this 96 year. Yes, he could have won in the years after that, but he was named the MVP. He was the points per game leader this season, averaging 30.4 points per game. And not only you have the points per game leader, you have the rebounds per game leader in Dennis Rodman. And then you have an all-star in Pippen. And they also had insane competition. In the Eastern Conference, they had to go against the Knicks, and they beat them in 5 games. They sweep a young Orlando Magic team with Shaq and Penny. Let's not underestimate the talent that this team had. They're a 60-win team. And let's not neglect the opponent that the Bulls face. They're going up against a 64-win Seattle Supersonics team with Shawn Kemp and Gary Payton. The Seattle Supersonics had to beat the defending champions in the Houston Rockets and then beat the Utah Jazz. So the competition in this era was insane. There was a bunch of competing, contending teams to go up against that Michael Jordan had to face on a yearly basis. But the competition MJ and this Bulls team faced is unmatched you can't compare it to the 16-17 Warriors. This Bulls team got to the line more, had more free throw attempts. Their points per game differential is the highest in NBA history at north of 12 points per game. The 16-17 Warriors rank 4th in this category at 11.4 points per game. Hey, thanks for tuning into Beats and Basketball on YouTube. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe below. We're doing weekly videos. Yes, I'm shooting for every Friday at 6 p.m. We're dropping a new video every week. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you around next time on Beats and Basketball.